when it comes to what I do because of how we flow and how we work together and how much I can count on them. So that being said, let's bring him in, the man of the hour, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com's owner and operator, and the man who works with me on Winning Fantasy Football, the group on Facebook, to show some love for Mr. Mike Sofka. Mike, how are we doing today?
Hey, doing great. How are you, Dan?
Doing very well. And Mike, we are tasked this week inside of this hour, the Fantasy Football Power Hour, to discuss every NFC wide receiver tight end situation. To go 16 teams in, we already did the AFC. Now it's time to do the NFC, and to speak on these wide receivers and what our take is on where they stand and what it means for your fantasy. So in the 2021-2022 season, we've done this on the AFC side, as I said. It's now time to do it on the NFC side, and I'm always honored and privileged to be able to do this with you because we go so in-depth and really help people beyond what their anticipation is of being helped, and that's our job in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, to give you the best advice that we can give you through and through. And so, Mike, we will start with the NFC North, and we'll start with the Chicago Bears as we go in alphabetical order. The wide receiver situation, Allen Robinson is still there. Darnell Mooney, coming from, I believe, Tulane, is working to step some things up. My guy Anthony Miller hasn't really panned out consistently from Memphis, but hoping he gets better. Marquise Goodwin has found his way over there from San Francisco. Riley Ridley is there, the brother of Calvin Ridley. And we have Daz Newsome, who I covered in college. He's there from North Carolina, and so on and so forth. And then they have Cole Kmet at tight end, and Jimmy Graham is there as well. As Jimmy Graham has just found a way to stay somewhat timeless in the NFL at the tight end position. So what is your overall take on the Chicago Bears when we look at their receiving core of wide receivers and tight ends?
Well, first off, Jimmy Graham is 100 years old, but his goal, his role was to come in and help Cole Kmet. And he's done that, but he also showed up himself as well. So as far as the tight end situation goes, I think Cole Kmet's a, bottom end tight end too, and you can't really speak about Jimmy Graham anymore. Maybe later in the year, keep him on your radar in case of an injury or something like that, if he's still out there. But I'm not actively pursuing Jimmy Graham. I am actively pursuing Allen Robinson, who's ranked number 12 on my PPR list, and everything I give, of course, is PPR. But I've seen him as high as 7. I've seen him as low as 19. But this is a guy that I think has been through a lot with the fluctuation at quarterback there, with the question marks at quarterback. And I still think there's question marks at quarterback. So I'm not going to heavily invest in the Chicago pass catchers, but Allen Robinson's definitely one I can count on. Darnell Mooney seemed to show up, and I want him to take that next step, but I don't see it happening with the quarterback situation. I've got Darnell Mooney at 54 right now. Now, he may change. I'm really keeping a close eye on him. And, in my mind's eye, Damari Bird had the best year he's had, and that was last year in this offense. That was with all the questions. I haven't seen Riley Ridley or Anthony Miller do anything to jump up there. So, I don't know. I'm not really high on any of the Chicago wide receivers except for Allen Robinson.
Yeah, Cole Kmet, I see him taking over, and with the quarterback being the situation that it is, in a distress time, first and foremost, your quarterback room is Andy Dalton, then you have your rookie in Justin Fields, and that's the thing that's, neither one of these guys was on the team last year, and I think in an emergency situation, where are you going? You're going to your tight end, and you're going to your running back. So I think that Cole Kmet could have some nice numbers. I think he's a good backup for you. I think he's a good tight end, too, for you on your team this year. I think if you get him as your second tight end, there's nothing to, frown about, nothing to fret about in that case. I think there is a lot of value with picking him up as a second tight end on your team. Allen Robinson, I got to cover him when he was in college at Penn State, and I got to interview him and spend time with him in the locker room when he was in Jacksonville. I want him to do well. He does have good hands. He has ability. I am not overly wowed by him, but I do want to look at his numbers. First, I want to look at Darnell Mooney, though. Darnell Mooney only played one season. And Darnell coming to this team, like I said, from Tulane. He last year played in all 16 games, started in 9, had 631 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is what he's coming into the season with. He's not a bad guy as a low-end 2, a high-end 3, because I do think he has good upside. I think he could end up being a wide receiver 2 for you. But it highly leans on the situation at quarterback. That's what Mike brought up, and that's what the reality is. He could be great, or he could be a forgotten man. Remember, last year, who was throwing to him? Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. Now who's throwing to him? 2 totally different quarterbacks, Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. So, being in that situation, you never know how they're going to link up, and it's the same thing for Allen Robinson. The difference with Allen Robinson is he has had time in the NFL. Last year, he had over 1,200 yards. He's got back-to-back seasons of having 1,100 or more yards, so he's been a 1,000-yard receiver in back-to-back seasons, and then some. He started in 15 of 16 games in 2019, all 16 last year. He had 98 catches 2 years ago, 102 catches last year. So looking at where he is in the here and now has been fantastic, even in situations where the quarterback situation has always been fluid. You never know who the guy's going to be. Touchdown-wise, he has 7 in 2019-20, 6 last season. His other 1,000-yard season was his second year in the NFL, when he played for Jacksonville to 2015-2016 season, where he had 80 receptions for 1,400 yards. Think about that. He had 1,250 yards and 102 receptions last year, and with 22 less receptions in 2015, he had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. 1,400 on the nose. So, beautiful to see what he did in Jacksonville as a sophomore in the NFL, but he's playing his best back-to-back ball right now, and he's doing it in these terrible quarterback situations. So, like Mike said, PPR, good stuff. Doing it no matter who the quarterback is, good stuff. And no matter how nasty NFL Chicago looks on offense, good stuff. So I think, with Darnell Mooney, there's the upside of him being a 2, but you draft him obviously lower. And Allen Robinson is a 1. I don't think he's the highest end of the ones, but he's still a 1 for you to pick up based on his productivity and the fact that it hasn't been a one-hit wonder. He's done it back-to-back years in not great situations. So I like Allen Robinson as a 1. I like Darnell Mooney as a low-end 2, or a lower-end 2 with upside, and I like Cole Kmet as your second tight end on your team this season. With that being said, we flip to the Detroit Lions, Mike, as we take a look at the wide receivers and tight ends of every single NFC team inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of or not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, inside of the Home Depot Plaza. Open 7 days a week with indoor and outdoor seating, as well as for takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. 2-2. Mike, Detroit's got another new quarterback situation as well with Jared Goff. They got a bunch of picks, and they got Jared Goff to let go of Matt Stafford. They brought in Tyrell Williams, who's new, Brashad Perriman, who's new, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's new, Geronimo Allison, who's a newer face who had come over from the Packers. So there's new. Sage Surratt is on the team as well from Carolina. Lot of new faces. Nobody who is a household Detroit name, but some people obviously may know Geronimo Allison and Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman. But this is where they're at right now. A bunch of new guys as they let go of Golden Tate in recent history, Marvin Jones Jr. this offseason, and Kenny Galladay this offseason. What are your thoughts on what the receivers look like, as well as TJ Hawkinson being on the team and Darren Fells backing them up?
Well, they couldn't have made all those moves or let all those moves happen at wide receiver without getting rid of Matt Stafford. Can you imagine what Matt Stafford would be doing right now if this was his receiving core? All of a sudden, as it is, Detroit's one of those bubble teams. Detroit's one of those teams where you'll watch them if they're on, but I'm not out there each week going, oh my gosh, what time's Detroit playing? I'm not that interested. Because of this situation, because of the way the roster's been handled, because of the management of the team. Now, that being said, they do have some bright spots here recently. I think Sage Surratt's going to surprise some people. He's a deep sleeper for me this year, but I can't draft that guy yet. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'll tell you what, if you're in a league that scores for returns, kick return yardage, punt return yardage, go ahead and take a deep, make him your fifth or sixth receiver on the team because he's going to return both punts and kicks. So that'll get you some extra points. Plus, I think he's going to make his way onto the field. I think you're going to see some good things happen. I'd like to see Quintez Cephas step up, the product out of Wisconsin. I was high on him as a sleeper, but most of these guys, when I'm talking about being a sleeper, these guys are really 3 years to getting to where they need to be. And by that, I mean an excellent level, not necessarily all pro, not necessarily Pro Bowl, but at a superior level at their craft. And Bashard Perryman, injury-riddled guy to UCF. I can't really do anything with that. Tyrell Williams, I got him ranked in the 70s. I think he's 72. Khalif Raymond may start in the slot before St. Brown gets in the lineup. I'm just going to say this. All these guys I have ranked in the 70s or worse. The one bright spot I have is TJ Hawkinson. And don't forget, Jared Goff likes to throw to the tight end. So that he's number 4 on the tight end ranking. But everyone else, you better be in a deep league. You better be in a 16 or 24-man league. You better be 5-6 receivers deep before you consider any of these Detroit receivers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I mean, I don't see anybody going high on any of these guys. Tyrell was a 2 who never consistently showed up. Rashad Perryman, unfortunately, has been injured, and God bless, hopefully that doesn't ever happen again. Geronimo Allison was getting somewhere, and then Green Bay was willing to let him go. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we don't know. So, I mean, it really is TJ Hawkinson or bust. And again, you got a new quarterback on a team that, you got a quarterback situation where your guy wasn't there last year. He was across the country in LA. So this, again, puts people in a situation to trust in your running back and your tight end. TJ Hawkinson right now, by just my eyes on this roster, is the best wide receiver, and he's your tight end. So you can draft TJ Hawkinson, and you can kind of leave everybody else. I think he's a low-end 1, high-end 2 tight end, and I think everybody else is kind of just filling out your roster toward the end of your draft. That's really my best way to describe it. The Green Bay Packers are up next. The Packers, obviously, Aaron Rodgers allegedly has some trouble with what they have not brought in by drafting guys high and going out and getting guys in free agency. They do have Devontae Adams, and he does like Alan Lazard. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is holding on by the skin of his teeth, I think, this year out of South Florida. Amari Rodgers was drafted out of Clemson. Equanimeous St. Brown, a Notre Dame name, is still on the team. Mr. Devin Funchess is there, who never caught on in Carolina. Reggie, and then there's other names that aren't household names like Reggie Begelton and Juwan Winfrey and Chris Blair and so on and so forth. Thoughts on this, Mike? Obviously, we say Devontae Adams and everybody is wow, ooh, ah. But outside of that, can people trust in Valdez-Scantling or Lazard? Or do they take a flyer on a rookie? Is there enough from Alan Lazard to make somebody go for it? And Marquez Valdez-Scantling really only showed up when Lazard and Adams were both injured, and he had literally no other choice but to show up or to, get some pine on the bench. So what are your thoughts on the wide receiver core? And is Robert Tonyan enough for the future of Green Bay's tight end room?
Yeah, I think Robert Tonyan's enough. I think he's a bottom end tight end 1 for you. If you get yourself in a position where you can't get one of those top, 5 or 6 tight ends, I think the tight ends are relatively deep. I think you can go 6 tight ends deep and still have a premier tight end on your team. But if you get locked out of that in your draft for some reason, Tanyan's the red zone guy. Tanyan's the guy they're going to look for when they got that short and goal to go, a 3rd and goal, whatever. They're going to do a play action. They're going to do a pass to the tight end. Robert Tonyan's that guy. That's who they're looking for right now. I don't think Mercedes Lewis is going to make a dent in that. I'm surprised Jay Sternberger hasn't yet already. But Devontae Adams is a premier wide receiver in the league. I mean, he's one of the top guys year in, year out here recently. I've got him ranked at 6 right now just because of the questions at quarterback. There still is a question at quarterback. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be there? And I think he's going to be there. But my bigger question now is, does he want to be there? I think if you want to be there, you would be there. I think what Aaron's missing is every year for the past, I don't know how many years, he's seen all the sexy new toys show up and they get courted and smiles and laughter and joking around. And not to say that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that, but they really haven't treated him well in the draft wide receiver wise either. So, he's a guy that he's got a lot going on outside of football, and he's got a lot going on in his mind when it comes to football. I think he needs to stop thinking and start throwing. I think he needs to stop thinking about all that, because there's going to be a time and day where he's going to look back in 20 years or so from now and he's going to go, wow, I really pissed that year away. Or, wow, if I had only done this a little bit differently, we may have won some more games that year. He's got to have his head in the game. He's the leader of the team, and it's not a good showing right now that he's having a temper tantrum. He wants love too. The new baby's here and it's getting all the attention, and I'm not getting. He wants to be courted. Why don't you guys just kiss and make up in Green Bay, court each other, get it over with, ride out this last year or so, and be happy. But either way, I got Davante Adams at number 6 right now. I've seen him as high as 1, and he deserves that. But is Aaron Rodgers the quarterback? I've also seen Davante Adams as low as 21, because there's still the question mark about Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. But if Aaron Rodgers is indeed the quarterback, I think that lofts Davante Adams back up to that number 1 spot. I think that does wonders for Allen Lazard, who right now I have ranked at 64, and the rest of the wide receivers you can just forget about. The one good thing for Allen Lazard is that Aaron Rodgers likes him. He said that publicly. So, likable guy, Allen Lazard, by the way. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is it all hinges on Aaron Rodgers. Watch what's going on in Green Bay. And if Aaron Rodgers isn't part of the game, I don't know if I want part of anything out of Green Bay, really, besides Davante Adams.
Yeah, and that's an easy thing to look at. And I think, when you look at the receiving core, I think with or without Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon become enticing, maybe even more enticing if he's not there, because, what's Jordan Love going to do? He's going to have to hand that ball off and do some things. So, Davante Adams, we just got asked where we rank, him with Rodgers. You just said he's the number 1 wide receiver in the country. I would argue that he's 1 or 2. I think DeAndre fights him for that, DeAndre Hopkins, and I think DeAndre's in a better situation because Arizona looks like, they're built to win and built to move forward together, and it looks... obviously the situation is very dicey in Green Bay. So I think Davante Adams is either your 1 or your 2 overall with Rodgers, and Mike just said he's your number 1. So, it's Davante definitely is affected by who's going to be his quarterback. And it's not that he's not talented or couldn't do things with Jordan Love, but with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams is, he's the top 2. So, I think that's clear. Allen Lazard's a good number 3 for you. I don't trust Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so I'd probably leave him in free agency. Amari Rodgers, I don't think anybody's going to draft him out of Clemson unless you have to go really, 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 really deep because we don't know what he's going to do. And, not all the Clemson wide receivers have been as obviously great as DeAndre Hopkins. Robert Tonyan, low end 1 at tight end. I agree with that. So, it's really Davante or bust, like you said. Allen Lazard's a 3 and Robert Tonyan's a low end 1. But it all hinges on who the quarterback's going to be. If it's Aaron Rodgers, then everything we said makes sense. If it's not, then we have to revisit. The Minnesota Vikings do have, out of everybody who has a quarterback situation, think about that. 3/4 of the NFC North either have a new quarterback or don't know who it's going to be. Minnesota is the only team that knows Kirk Cousins is their quarterback going into training camp. Their wide receivers, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, who stepped up last year as a rookie, Chad Beebe still there, Amir Smith-Marset, Busy Johnson, Blake Prohl, and so on and so forth. KJ Osborne, who came from Buffalo to the Miami Hurricanes, and I covered him there. Whop Phillier, shout out to my guy from HB Plant in Tampa, Florida, who I covered. That's what it looks like now. It's really Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. And then their tight end situation had Kyle Rudolph, doesn't anymore. Then Irv Smith was supposed to take over. Kind of did, kind of didn't. But now he's by himself. So could he do it this year? What are your thoughts on Minnesota?
Yeah, I like the receiving core in Minnesota. And, Minnesota's got Steady Eddie. Used to be Andy Dalton was the Mendoza line for me. He was always the middle of the pack. He was always as worst as you wanted to be for your backup quarterback or for a guy that you needed to depend on for a bye-week fill-in for you. You didn't want any worse than Andy Dalton. He was, that Mendoza line for me. Well, that's where Kirk Cousins is. He may not wow everybody. He may not storm off the field and go, "Did you like that?" every game. But there's going to be games where he's going to do that. And he can get the ball to the receivers. And he has some excellent receivers. Justin Jefferson, this guy's going to wow people even more than he did last year. I've got him ranked at number 9. I've seen him as high as 5 and as low as 14. Adam Thielen's going to take a little step back, I think, because he may not storm off the field. I got Thielen in the 20s at 22. I've seen him as high as 17, and I've seen him as low as 35. I like what they've done with the roster, except for the Irv Smith experience. I think Kyle Rudolph being gone, Irv Smith, contract year, this is your year, buddy. Are you going to make it happen? I got him number 13 right now on the tight end ranking. So not a guy I'm looking for, but if I'm looking for a backup and it's late in the draft, a guy from my bench, yeah, I'm going to pick him up if he's available. The guy that I'm really excited about, though, and that you should have on your long-term plans as far as tight end on the roster is Zach Davidson out of Central Missouri. They took him in the 5th round, but this is a small school guy who played tight end and averaged over 40 yards per punt. He's a punter as well. But this guy has the build. He's 6'7", 245. He can block, so that's going to get him on the field. So he could, by the end of the year or by injury, emerge as a star in a dynasty league. This is an unknown guy that you're going to want to target late in the draft as well. So I like the receiving core in Minnesota. I think Kirk Cousins is the steady Eddie guy to keep those guys fed. You can't go wrong with a guy from Minnesota on your roster, especially if his name's Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so I think that there's, like you said, there's value here that you don't necessarily see in other places right now inside of the NFC North, but you see it here. I think Adam Thielen is one of those guys that you can count on. The question was he going to be able to do some good things without Stephon Diggs? And I think that he has. I think he definitely has put himself out there and had success and given you a reason to draft him. And Justin Jefferson is going to be a nice, 1-2 to that punch. So I do like that. I think there's upside with Justin Jefferson. I think there's some good to be had there. So when we look at Justin's numbers last year, 1,400 yards as a rookie. I mean, I just said that about Allen Robinson when he was a sophomore. 7 touchdowns, 1,400 yards, 16 games played, 14 games started, 88 receptions. I mean, 1,400 yards as a rookie. Is there any other? I mean, what else do I have to say? Adam Thielen, 925 yards last year, just shy of 1,000, had 14 touchdowns, 74 catches. Should you draft Adam Thielen? Yes. Should you draft Justin Jefferson? Yes. Beyond that is where I pause. There's no other wide receiver I'd go after. And Irv Smith, I'd let him drop. If you get him as like a third tight end, or you just kind of maybe, fall asleep on a couple of your second ones that you're looking for, and this is the guy you have to take as your second guy, okay. But if you cannot do it, I wouldn't. That's how I look at it. With that being said, Mike and I are going to flip to the next NFC division, and that's the NFC South. And with the NFC South, we'll start with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have been in a remodeling of their tight end core over the last couple of years. Now they have Kyle Pitts, their top draft pick here, 4th overall. Hayden Hurst is still there. Calvin Ridley is their leading receiver, with Julio Jones finally moving on. Russell Gage has stepped it up here on the depth chart. Olamide Zaccheaus, that I covered from Virginia, is still there, and Tajay Sharp comes over after things didn't work out. A very young receiver from the Tennessee Titans has found his way. And Cordarrelle Patterson cannot be on enough teams, but he's a running back and a wide receiver on this team, so he's an Atlanta Falcon right now. And Russell Gage, just in case you don't know his name, he's played 3 seasons in the NFL. This past season started in 8 of the 16 games he played in, 72 catches, 786 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So, Mr. Mike Sofka, what happens with the receiving core that now no longer features Julio Jones?
Yeah, this gives me a little bit of a question Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley is an excellent receiver. I think he's the number one on a lot of teams, including your fantasy team as well. I got him ranked as high as 3. I got him as low as 13. There was a time there where Julio was getting all the yards and Calvin was getting all the touchdowns in his rookie year. But, everybody's kind of moved and gotten their spot. Well, not yet. Not now. Julio Jones departing for Tennessee. Christian Blake may be the name that you're going to want to look at. He's going to step right in, but this could be the opportunity for a guy like Frank Darby at Arizona State, the 6th-round pick. This is a guy who's an underrated guy. This is a guy you might want to target in Dynasty as well. Olamide, Zacchaeus. I've seen bits and pieces and flashes of brilliance. Let's see if that can continue. Let's see if Russell Gage can hang on to a spot in the starting lineup. That's where he is right now. But I like Antonio Nunn. I like his opportunity to make the roster. The guy out of Buffalo, I think he's going to make the roster. I think he's going to be able to do something there. But how can you not like Kyle Pitts? They went out and got Hayden Hurst last year. Hayden couldn't get it done for some reason with Matt Ryan. So they go out and get the best receiver. Yeah, I said best receiver coming out of college ball in Kyle Pitts at the tight end position. Kyle Pitts is a guy you're going to want to target. Kyle Pitts is worthy of being your number 1 tight end. Kyle Pitts right now, he's a rookie. Hasn't played it down. And I got him number 6. And the only guys he's behind are, of course, all the leaders. Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Hawkinson, Andrews. And then Kyle Pitts. I got him over a Goddard, a fan. I got him over Tanyan. I got him over Gesicki. I got him over Higby. That's how much I believe in Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts is available, and you're thinking it's time to take a tight end, not in the first round, but by all means, go ahead and take Kyle Pitts. I think the opportunity looks bright for Kyle Pitts. I think the opportunity looks bright for the future for some of these wide receivers to step up and make a name for themselves in the next year or two. I just hope Calvin Ridley is enough for the Falcons' sake to get things done in the meantime.
Yeah, and I think that, when you really look at this and you break it all down, Atlanta does have some upside and some things to be excited about here. They have Matt Ryan still there. They got A.J. McCarron and Felipe Franks they drafted late from Arkansas through Florida. And so, I think Calvin Ridley I still think he's a high-end 2. I don't consider him a 1. Russell Gage is a flex. Olamide Zacchaeus, Frank Darby, Tajay Sharp, Christian Blake. All these guys could end up being flexes for you. And, so which one to take? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you kind of just, So, because somebody's going to have to step up, and we don't know exactly who that's going to be. So those are all names that may be in free agency. But if you were going to take any of them, Tajay Sharp has more experience. Russell Gage has a little bit of experience on this team with Matt Ryan, so that has a little more value. So that's something to look at. But I think Calvin Ridley is a high-end 2. Kyle Pitts is a number 1 tight end. I believe in it. Okay, I'm here. I'm drinking this Kool-Aid, and I'm gonna sit on this Kyle Pitts thing. If he's available to me, and I wait a couple rounds, and I get what I need to get overall, and I don't overdraft this guy, if he falls to me, I'm taking him. If you want to take him in the first round, that could be huge upside and awesome for you. But at the same time, he's marked as a tight end. However, he's a receiver. He's a receiver in the field. And Matt Ryan needs another number 1 guy. And I don't think Calvin Ridley is the number 1 guy. So Kyle Pitts could be the number 1 receiver, even though he's a tight end in Atlanta when all's said and done this season. He's a weapon. Okay? And that is something to take. I'd wait it just a little bit. Not too long. But somewhere within the first 3 rounds, I would imagine he'll be gone. Mike, the Carolina Panthers, they have a new quarterback too, Sam Darnold. And maybe P.J. Walker. And Will Greer's still there. Robbie Anderson is reunited with Sam Darnold. DJ Moore is back for some more. David Moore is there, not to be confused with DJ Moore. One has to say David on the back. One has to say D Moore, and the other one has to say DJ Moore, but either one of them has to do more. Terrence Marshall Jr. is on the team, drafted in this year's 2021 draft. So those are really the names. Marshall, Moore, and Anderson. And then Dan Arnold is their tight end, and Ian Thomas is there as well. What are your thoughts on where we stand here with Carolina, with a new quarterback and a reunited quarterback with Robbie Anderson? What does that do? And them saying to DJ Moore, hey, you're young in the game, and we went and got Marshall because obviously they're not getting everything that they need to get, or else they wouldn't have drafted Marshall. So what's your take on Carolina?
Yeah, I bet you they asked Robbie Anderson. They weren't asking for permission, but just out of curiosity, doing their due diligence before they brought Sam Darnold in. I think they asked him about his relationship with Darnold. I think they asked him how he felt about catching the ball. Could he count on him? How was he getting the ball from Darnold and so forth. I think Darnold got a raw deal in New York. I think he never had the tools around him. I think he never had the coaching around him. I think there was just
to be excited
a bad
about
situation
here.
after bad situation.
They have Matt Ryan still there. They got AJ
started with
McCarron.
Le'Veon Bell. So neither here nor there. Bell's no longer on that team, and neither is Sam Darnold. A name you're going to want to keep on your radar. And when we think Carolina, we think of throwing the ball to the tight end. We think of Olsen. We think of guys being able to get it done. I don't think Ian Thomas has been able to step up and get it done. They went out and got another tight end, a guy in a joker position, if you would. He's going to be an excellent blocker, more used like a Kyle Juszczyk, and that's Tommy Tremble. I think Tommy Tremble is a guy you're going to want to keep an eye on in Dynasty, but deep, way deep. But this is a guy you may be able to count on in goal line situations even as well. I'm talking so much about the tight ends because I downgraded the wide receivers right now. I think if Darnold was going to get it done, he would have got a little more done in his time in New York. I know he had the bout with mono as well, but DJ Moore is the number one guy, and I don't have DJ Moore ranked as a number one receiver for the first time since DJ Moore's been in the league. I've seen him as high as 14 and as low as 32. The reason for that? Sam Darnold. It's a new situation. You don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to rely more heavily on Christian McCaffrey? Are they going to try to boost Darnold's confidence by continuing to have Christian McCaffrey catch the ball out of the backfield? How much of an impact is Robbie Anderson's relationship with Sam Darnold going to have on DJ Moore? And don't forget, they just brought in this other cat, Terrace Marshall. The guy out of LSU runs a 4.4. They took him in the second round. So there's a lot of flashy names. There's a lot of good names here. Something's going to happen. Something's going to break free. You're going to be able to count on these guys. The only guy I can really count on from Carolina is Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore, if he's my bottom end second, maybe wide receiver 3 at this point. But I know somebody's going to overdraft him as well as Robbie Anderson as well. So have patience if you take one of these guys. It may take a couple weeks to get everything going. And, that's just the nature of the beast. But, these guys have the opportunity to surprise. They can be the splash. They can be the fire to ignite your team. I'm just not so heavy on it right now.
Yeah, Carolina, Robbie Anderson being reunited with Sam Darnold is huge for Robbie. Because the Jets did to, and I've said this before on the show, the Jets did to Sam Darnold what they did to Mark Sanchez. They took all his weapons away, and the players that he really seemed to have good chemistry with in the receiving core, be it a tight end or a wide receiver, they took those guys away and then said, oh, well, he's not doing what he needs to do as a quarterback. Well, if you take away his weapons, what's he supposed to do? So, it's just ridiculous to me what they did to Sanchez and what they did to Darnold. Let's take away the guys that he's so comfortable throwing to that he has a lot of success with. And then when he doesn't have success after we take him away, let's blame it for him, make him the scapegoat and get rid of him. How many scapegoats do they have to have at quarterback before people realize it's the Jets organization and not the signal caller? So, with that being said, I like Robbie Anderson and I like that Sam Darnold's back with him. DJ Moore is a wide receiver 3 at best right now. I do not trust him. I'm not moved to pick him in any way, shape, or form. It's probably a name I'm not going to think about on draft day. Terrace Marshall Jr., he's a question mark, but he's got upside. In a deep league, I'd take him over DJ Moore. And Robbie Anderson I would take first if you're going to take any Carolina wide receiver, but he's not anything more than a number 2 right now. And yes, to go back to a point, Greg was writing some stuff to us here. Big shout out to Greg, big time fan of our fantasy football coverage. I appreciate it, Greg. And he plays in our fantasy football leagues. To you, Greg, I will tell you that Calvin Ridley's got good numbers, right? He's got over 1,374 yards this past season, 15 games started, 15 games played. So, he's had 9 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, and 10 touchdowns in his career in the NFL. But he did all of that with Julio Jones. And I think that he's a 2 that did well as a 2. But Julio is the 1. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be the 1, and I think he needs a 1 in order to open up his 2 status. That's why I think he's a wide receiver 2. Now, if he takes over as a 1 and he shows me more than I expect, I'll be happy with. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think his numbers are good, but I think he needs a guy to be the dominant focus in order for him to play free. So that's how I feel about it. That's why I think he's a wide receiver 2. I think his numbers are good. I mean, obviously they're good. But I just don't know how successful he's going to be without Julio Jones if Kyle Pitts doesn't come onto this team and step up. So that's what I'm saying. So my thoughts on this, I'm not drafting a tight end from Carolina. I'm considering drafting Robbie Anderson as my 3rd or 4th wide receiver. I think he's a wide receiver 2 on a team, but I'm telling you, I'm going to draft him like 3rd or 4th of all the guys I'm looking at, is how I would say. And Terrace Marshall with an outside look that I kind of will have my eye on during the season, obviously, and nobody else. That's how I look at it. I'm not sold by anybody else to move me in this. NFC North continuation of coverage of receiving cores around the league to get you ready for 2021 fantasy here inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And you can also have them for takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. Speaking of wide receivers that we don't understand what the hell is going on, Michael Thomas had this really weird relationship. Like, was it COVID? Was it an injury? Did he just not want to play for the Saints? Now he doesn't have Drew Brees. He has Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, and he's allegedly there still. Traquan Smith, who stepped up and caught the record-setting pass from Drew Brees last year coming out of UCF, but he was quiet last year. And then a bunch of non-household names. Marquez Callaway, Juwan Johnson, Deontay Harris, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Kawan Baker, Jake Lampman, Jalen McCleskey, and Aesop Winston are all there. So this is what we're looking at right now. And Juwan Johnson's actually spending time at tight end and not just wide receiver. Adam Trotman and Nick Vannett are there as well at tight end. A lot of non-household names outside of Michael Thomas, and Traquan Smith still not a relative household name. New Orleans is a lot changing. It's not just Drew Brees, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Michael Thomas thing stems to preseason last year. Him and Drew Brees had a tiff about social justice and social media issues, and I think he never recovered from that, and then he was injured. He came up, basically it was the worst season of his career. He played in week 1, and he missed 6 games, and then he returned all limping around in week 9, and then he went on a 6-game stretch with no touchdowns, only averaging 70 yards a game. So it's not the Michael Thomas we were used to. These are not the George we're looking for. This is the guy who was arguably number 1 receiver in the league with Brees, and it just all fell apart. Brees is no longer on a team. I think Thomas is okay with that situation. But now, this is always that thing where be careful what you wish for, because now he's looking at Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. They brought in Ian Book, but that's the future. He's far from taking over. Trevor Simeon's never going to see the field there, parked at Olympia High School here in Orlando. But Michael Thomas is a guy you can no longer just pencil in as a number 1 guy. I got him at number 7, and that's a gift in my mind. I've seen somebody rank him number 1, and I question that. I've seen him as low as 14. I'm comfortable with where I have him at 7. But that's it. I haven't seen enough of Traquan Smith. The questions at quarterback preempt me from picking any other wide receiver on this team. And I can't even pick a tight end here, a Nick Vannett who they brought in. Maybe a Adam Troutman, but he's the highest ranking tight end on my rankings at 24. So there's 23 other guys above him I'd rather you take. So maybe a Michael Thomas if he falls to you. I wouldn't rely on any of these other guys except a Deontay Harris, or Marquez Callaway as your last wide receiver if you get points for return yards in your league. Again, that's a stat that people don't often look at and they take for granted. Those things add up let's say you have a good defense and you're causing the other team to punt a lot. That's a lot better than having a bad defense and having somebody kick you a lot because you're probably just going to take a knee. So you got to look for those return yard situations in your league. That's where some of these wide receivers can take you as a 5th receiver. They can fill in nicely for you on a bye week. So I would maybe take Michael Thomas, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Thomas to me is not a top 2. He's not a top 3. The situation that he had last year with Drew Brees makes me put things into question, on top of the fact that he has a new quarterback now, no matter who takes over. So I don't like the scenario, which means that Michael Thomas, he's not bad, obviously, but he doesn't make me feel great. I'm not drafting him as my first wide receiver, my second wide receiver. I think he's in your top 10 because of his success, and maybe in your top 5, but with the when was he injured, when was he not injured, does he want to be here, does he not want to be here, and now he doesn't have Drew Brees throwing to him. A lot of questions, not a lot of answers. That leaves him a question mark. Top 4 status and talent, but are you willing to take that flyer on him if it doesn't work out? That's the big question you're going to have to ask yourself on draft day. And I can't answer that for you. All I can tell you is he's talented enough, but I hope I get another wide receiver before him. That's what I can tell you. In Tampa, we have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown still there, Scotty Miller there as well. We have Rob Gronkowski and O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. The band's back together to try and win another Super Bowl with Tom Brady in year number 2 in Tampa, and he'll be 45 years old. Thoughts on this one, Mike?
Yeah, there's a lot of names in Tampa, and they were able to bring a lot of those names back and continue to draft well. I think they did well in the draft as well. I think that, when you look at Tom Brady, he hasn't really had those receivers outside of 1 year with Randy Moss where, these guys were putting up a ton of yards, 1,600 yards and 20 touchdowns or whatever, as these elite receivers do sometimes. I got elite receivers in Tampa. You got Mike Evans. You got Chris Godwin. Either one of them would hands down be the number 1 receiver on a lot of other teams in the NFL. And they can battle for that position back and forth. I got Mike Evans at 14 and Chris Godwin at 15. Now, I've seen Mike Evans as high as 3 and as low as 27. I've seen Chris Godwin as high as 11 and as low as 22. The reason for this, there's a lot of names. Don't forget, you got Antonio Brown in the slot. Now, I think there's going to be some drama. There's going to be some occasional Antonio Brown flare-ups and some things that are going to happen on the field that are going to make big splash plays. He might be an occasional great daily play, but I don't know if I'm going to want him on my team long term. And don't forget, they got 3 excellent tight ends in O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Rob Gronkowski. I think these guys all kind of cannibalize each other. I got Gronk ranked the highest tight end on the team at 17, and I got O.J. Howard at 29. These guys are all capable, but in a way, because Tom Brady spreads the ball around so well, and don't forget, you got speedsters on the sidelines as well, and Scotty Miller or Justin Watson, Tyler Johnson. So there's some excitement here. There's some guys to get excited about. The problem is there's just too many of them. You walked into the world's greatest buffet that has all your favorite foods, and that's it. You're not going to be able to totally fill up your plate on that one thing. You're going to need to take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, if you want to enjoy a taste of everything. And that's what Tampa has with Tom Brady. It's a fortunate position to be in. They got a stable full of running backs as well. A lot of teams would like to have this problem of too much talent, but it's not exactly the wisest or the best thing for your fantasy team. Keep that in mind when you're drafting these guys.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talent here, obviously, but Tom Brady has proven that he doesn't care who the guy is. He just wants to win. He doesn't care about your fantasy team. He cares about reality Super Bowl championships. So Mike Evans is a 1. Chris Godwin is obviously also arguably a 1. And Rob Gronkowski's a 1. And O.J. Howard's arguably a 1, a lower-end 1 at tight end. So they're all worth taking. It's just you understanding that the ball will be spread out. So I think Evans and Godwin are going to get their numbers for you. I don't think they should be your number 1 overall wide receiver on your team, but I do think that they both obviously have number 1 wide receiver status value. And Rob Gronkowski, a number 1 at tight end, and O.J. Howard a lower end number 1 at tight end as well. To go back to Atlanta, I want to make something clear. I'm not saying that Calvin Ridley is not number 1 wide receiver fantasy status. I'm saying that his numbers came from Julio Jones being the number 1 focus of the defense. This is the year where Calvin Ridley either separates himself for better or for worse. Either he's going to prove that he can take over the reins and be the number 1 guy, or Kyle Pitts is going to take that, and Calvin Ridley's still going to get good numbers, but he's going to be in a situation where he's not the number 1 in Atlanta. That's what I'm saying. Calvin Ridley, with the defense, double-teaming him, focusing on him, shifting toward him, I don't know if his numbers are going to stay the same. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying he doesn't have wide receiver 1 fantasy numbers, because obviously he does. I'm saying that I don't know if those numbers will hold up in a year where he doesn't have Julio Jones to be the dominant force on the field. So let me be clear about that. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that he needs to be in a place where he separates himself for better. He's either going to separate himself for better or for worse. And it's up to him. And it's up to this offense. and how much Matt Ryan wants to go to Kyle Pitts. So there's question marks there. That doesn't mean he's not capable. It means that he's done very well being the guy who wasn't the main focus of the defense. Now, if he is, what will he do? Because we've seen some wide receivers not respond well to that. And I don't know where Kelvin's going to be. So we'll see his story be written this year and see how it goes. That's why I wouldn't have him as my number one overall wide receiver. I would have him as my second wide receiver I'd take off the board. That's what I'm saying. We'll take a step aside for a fast break, and when we come back, Mike and I inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour will have plenty to talk with you about here in the NFC East and the NFC North as we look at their receiving cores right after this, where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cubal needs. Cafe Cubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening to internet streaming radio all over the world. You're watching on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, which is also being shared on facebook.com live now /live now DT, as well as on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So thank you for wherever you're watching and listening on Facebook, MixLR, wakeupcalldt.com, and on YouTube. Mike and I are going to every single division of the NFC to give you our advice on the receiving core situations around the league. The next we go to is the NFC East, which will bring us to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys have Dak Prescott back because, Jerry Jones finally agreed to sell one of his yachts to pay for, Dak Prescott and, the rights to buy half of the continent of South America. So Amari Cooper is there. Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, who they drafted last year, are all there on the team. Is there enough to give fantasy value to all of them, Mr. Sofka? Blake Jarwin is there, and Dalton Schultz, who they got when they could have gotten Dallas Goedert, and Philly went and got a pick and traded up to go right above Dallas to take Dallas from Dallas. So what are your thoughts about Amari, Michael, CeeDee, and Dalton Schultz, as well as Blake Jarwin, as we head toward this new season?
Yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately for Dallas, if I'm an NFL defensive coordinator, the names Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz don't bring shudders. I'm not going to lose any sleep over these guys in my game plan. Unfortunately for Dallas, I got Blake Jarwin to rank the highest tight end on the team at number 18. I've seen him as low as 27 and as high as 10. So, maybe there's some daily play in there somewhere. Maybe he's going to jump up and surprise somebody, but I'm probably not drafting Blake Jarwin or Dalton Schultz. Looking at the receivers, I like Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb a lot. Unfortunately, they're a little bit like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, like we talked about before, where at the expense of the other. Both of them could be a number one on some other teams as well. I got Amari Cooper ranked at 13. I've seen him as high as 9 and as low as 20. And, I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. I got him at 15. I've seen him as high as 9 and as low as 25. So I think CeeDee Lamb's going to put up a lot of production. I think Amari Cooper's going to put up some splash plays, some deep passes, but CeeDee Lamb can break it loose at any time. And then you got Michael Gallup in the mix as well. I got him in the high 30s, so I'm probably not going to be drafting him. But, there may be an opportunity, by an injury or something else that comes up. And you know what Dallas did? They went out and they brought in some wide receiver talent as well. TJ Vasher, I like his odds. I like Brandon Smith. I like Simi Fehoko. I think that there's going to be some of these guys, Cyrus Mitchell. These guys may get on the field and surprise us at times, but I think it's going to be much later in the year. Oh, how can I forget Cedric Wilson, too? So these are names to us right now, but none of these names mean much. The names I want you to remember on Dallas is Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Those are the two guys you want.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the tight ends at all in any stretch of the imagination. I want Dalton Schultz to step it up, and I've just never really thought that Blake Jarwin's going to bring anything. But I hope that they both have great careers and they both step it up. I would lean more on Dalton Schultz than Jarwin, but I don't see anything that's wowing me in any way at tight end. So I'm with you there. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, yes. CeeDee Lamb had some good moments. Michael Gallup's kind of been left in the dust here. So, they say he's impressing this and impressing that, but if I had to choose, I would say Amari Cooper 1, CeeDee Lamb 2, Michael Gallup 3. And that's how I look at them. I think CeeDee Lamb could eventually take over the one in Dallas, but I think this is where we're at right now. CeeDee Lamb is worth drafting, Amari Cooper is worth drafting, and Michael Gallup is worth building depth on your team. Next up in the NFC East, as we take a look at receiving cores from around the country inside of the NFC, as we did the AFC in our last video. You can check that out by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and the fantasy football tab on wakeupcalldt.com will have plenty for you to enjoy as well. So the next up here are the New York Football Giants, and the New York Football Giants have Kenny Golladay now. They all of a sudden tripped and fell into something cool here. They had Golden Tate, who came away from Detroit. Now they have Kenny Golladay, who came away from Detroit. They still have Sterling Shepard, who's 1,000 years old. John Ross is there, who was the speedster that never caught on in Cincinnati. Darius Slayton did some good things as a rookie, and they got Kadarius Toney out of Florida in this year's draft. So all that's coming to you, and C.J. Board, not a bad guy, who is down the depth chart in Jacksonville. It's another name that I know. And then they have Evan Engram, who's coming back. Evan Engram had some good moments, but kind of dipped off a little bit, and they brought in Kyle Rudolph to help out. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I think they got some names here. I think, the Kenny Golladay, makes a big splash, and that's what you want to do in New York is make a big splash all the time. That's real important for, that's where everybody's attention supposedly is. That's supposedly the media capital of the world. So, you always want to be front page news. You don't want to be on the back page of the Post. Darius Slayton did surprise some people. He did get on the front page a couple times last year. I like where his game is going. I'm not there yet with him. I'm not drafting him just yet unless he's one of my last receivers. I'm taking a stab at him. And again, the return yards. He's a return guy. So, that might be key for you. But a Kenny Golladay, I can't really say that I'm going to be all excited about Kenny Golladay. Somebody's going to overdraft him, I know. But I got Kenny Golladay at 26. I've seen him as high as 19 and as low as 50 27. So, I mean, the jury's out. It's a new team. It's a new deal, new quarterback, Daniel Jones. I would think Daniel Jones would improve with these improved names. John Ross, I don't think he's ever caught on, even when he was at Cincinnati, super fast guy. But Kadarius Toney was just drafted out of the University of Florida. Now, Kadarius Toney is a guy who could get 90, 100 catches, could break 1,000 yards, but probably not this year. I think he's going to have an impact on the field this year. I don't think he's going to be impeded by any of the other receivers on the roster like a Sterling Shepard or Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis, he's way on the downside right now. He needs to step it up. Sterling Shepard, I think, can do some things that are going to be great at times, but again, I don't think either one of these guys are going to step in the way of Kadarius Toney. I think he's going to take over that position from John Ross in the slot, and I think he's going to have some meaningful production. He's worthy of a back-end roster spot for you at receiver. Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph, I think they're going to cannibalize each other at wide receiver. I got the highest ranking one being Evan Ingram at 13. I've seen him as high as 9 and as low as 20. So, I'm not super excited about any of these guys, but they are on my radar. And if I have a dynasty league, I'm definitely drafting Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, so for me, and like you said, Kadarius Toney worth the draft pick. I like Kenny Galladay as a wide receiver. I know he's a 1 in the... This is the thing with the Giants. They needed to bolster up their offensive line, and they needed to get wide receiver help in order to help out Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. They needed to do those two things. Now, the jury's still out on how I feel about their offensive line, but I can give them respect that offensively they went after guys. They brought in Kyle Rudolph, they brought in Kenny Galladay, they brought in Kadarius Toney, they brought in John Ross. I like that they're making moves to try and create depth, to try and give some help to Saquon Barkley and to Daniel Jones. So I do appreciate that. I like Mike Glennon being there to help train Daniel Jones and help him along, because Glennon's been around forever and a day. And he was just in Jacksonville. And before that, he was in Tampa and so on and so forth. So I think that that's good. I think it's really good, the moves that they've made that they've needed to make. Get somebody in there to help your young quarterback. Get in offensive linemen to try and help out. That jury's still out for me. Bring in guys who have been successful, or guys that have the opportunity to create depth at wide receiver and tight end. I like all of that. With that being said, fantasy football-wise, Evan Ingram is worth drafting, but he is not the highest of the ones that I thought he was right now. I don't have him coming in my top 4 or 5. That's what I'm saying. He's there in my top 10, arguably, but he's not a top 5 because, last year was meh, and I know that they didn't have Saquon, but still. He needs to be able to show up, and granted, now that he has help around him, I'm not going to put it all on him, because you can't, if everybody's keying in on him and there's no wide receivers and there's no Saquon, that makes it difficult. So I know that Evan Ingram, he should have a better season this season with more talent around him and Saquon returning, but Evan Ingram, to me, has to be more consistent. And so he's still a top 10 to me. He's not a top 5 yet, or in this moment. He was a top 5, arguably, going into last season. But I need to see more, and I'm not going to put it all on him because, like I said, they didn't have the depth and they had the injury issues. Kenny Galladay, to me, is worth drafting, but I don't see him as a number 1 overall wide receiver, even though he's the number 1 on the Giants right now. I don't see him as arguably that. I think Slayton, Toney, Galladay, Ross, anybody could take over. So Kadarius Toney, he's a sneaky sleeper pick. Slayton, somebody's going to go high on him. They might get him over Galladay because he was there last year. So I think Slayton is worth building up as a 2nd or 3rd or 4th wide receiver. Galladay the same. Kadarius Toney a sleeper. But not any of these guys, am I saying, is going to take over for my fantasy going into the season, because there's question marks and there's no number 1, 2, or 3. To me, arguably, there's no definitive number 1, 2, or 3. We look at Philadelphia, who went and got Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Alabama. Jalen Reagor, who they drafted the year before. So they got 2 rookies doing this. Travis Fulgham, who did some good things last year, having to come in. Greg Ward Jr., who transitioned from Houston quarterback to wide receiver in Philadelphia. All those guys are there. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, he's another young guy too. And then Dallas Goedert's still there with Zach Ertz, and they brought in Richard Rodgers. So what are your thoughts on all of this that we have going on in Philadelphia?
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, a quarterback. I don't know what we're getting. I think we're getting one of these running quarterbacks. I think we're getting a guy who's going to be able to run the ball a lot from the quarterback position. I think it's going to hurt the receivers. I think it's going to be a short passing game, short passes to Miles Sanders, to Boston Scott, to Kenneth Gainwell, who they just brought in, Kerryon Johnson, if he makes the roster, Jordan Howard, Elijah Holyfield, Adrian Killens at UCF. This is a team that's ready to run the ball. They're ready to attack. They're going to try to mimic what the Baltimore Ravens are doing. Why not? It's working for the Ravens. But you look at what this does to the fantasy value of some of these players, and it hurts them. Now, pardon my expression, but if Jalen Hurts gets hurt and they end up putting Joe Flacco in, believe it or not, some of these wide receivers are going to take a bump. They're going to have a higher ceiling because they're going to be more prone to passes. Joe Flacco's not that scrambling guy. Look, with that being said, the highest ranking wide receiver I have on the team is a rookie coming in, and Devontae Smith at number 44. Now, I've seen him as high as 32, and I've seen him as low as 62. So that should tell you something. There's a lot of other names. Jalen Reagor, totally disappointed last year in his rookie campaign. They moved up to get him out of TCU in the first round, and he hasn't done much. I think he had one or two outstanding splash plays, and that was it. Travis Fulgham, a guy who's cracked the lineup out of Old Dominion, and this is a guy who they're questioning his work ethic. You can't have somebody question your work ethic in the NFL. That's how you lose your job. John Hightower, Greg Ward, Quez Watkins. I'm not excited about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I'm not excited about any of these guys, really, unfortunately, until I see something. Somebody's going to overdraft some of these guys, and that's fine because you're going to get somebody else that I like better and that you like better, and you're going to win your championship. So just proceed with caution with the Eagles wide receivers. Same thing with the tight ends. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. I got Dallas Goedert at number 13, and I got Zach Ertz at number 20. So, I mean, it is what it is. They're going to try to mimic the Ravens. Maybe that's going to work out better for the tight ends, but Zach Ertz has been on the decline. So, again, caution with the pass catchers in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, they got talent, they do, and they have young talent. But the question is, are you willing to use a pick on it? That's the biggest question. Now, Hurts ran 63 times for 357 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, and he played, he started in four games last year, and he was utilized all throughout the season in 15 of the 16 games. So, Jalen Hurts is a part of this offense. And now he is the quarterback. Last year he came in as a piece. Now he's all of it. Now they got a lot of depth. At running back we talked about before. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kerryon Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, Jordan Howard, Jason Huntley, Elijah Holyfield, Adrian Killens Jr., and on and on and on and on and on. So, if they're going to be a heavy running team with all these running backs, and if Jalen Hurts wants to take off that way, well, then we've got to see a different type of defense or a different type of offense. Now, I think Devontae Smith, middle of the draft to the latter part of the draft, is worth taking. I think Jalen Reagor is a sleeper worth taking. And I think Dallas Goedert is worth taking as a low-end one because Zach Ertz could be on his way out, and Richard Rodgers I don't trust to be the guy. But outside of that, I don't think you should draft high any of these guys. I'm not saying they're not talented. I just wouldn't draft any of them high. That's how I look at it. I don't think that your best bet could be Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert, but do you need to spend a high pick on him? I say no. The Washington football team that still doesn't have a name, and no, I don't want to talk about how much it upsets me every time I have to talk about this. Terry McLaurin, he stepped up, and he was able to step up with anybody. Well, if anybody could step up with anybody, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, your new quarterback in Washington that's on his 72nd team of the NFL, even though there's only 32 franchises. And he's going to find success here, I'm sure, because he finds success everywhere else. Terry McLaurin is there. Curtis without Dwayne Haskins anymore. Curtis Samuel is there as well, coming from Carolina. Adam Humphries, who had spent some time around the league as well and was with Tampa. And then we have a bunch of other names, Antonio Gandy Golden, and so on and so forth. Their tight end is Logan Thomas and John Bates. Ricky Seals-Jones is there as well. Tamarick Hemingway, and on and on and on. Mike, Washington always seems every single year to be the team that says they kind of throw their hands up in the air. Maybe they should be the Washington Shrugs, and they should just have a guy with his hands up and his shoulders like raised shrugging. because we never really, when they say who's going to be the guy, they're always like, I don't know. And that's how it feels every year. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be predominantly. We don't know who the running back's going to be predominantly. We don't know who the wide receiver's going to be predominantly. We don't know who the tight end is going to be predominantly. So what are your thoughts on the receiving core?
I'll tell you, the running back's going to be Antonio Gibson. This guy can play. This guy, another Memphis running back who can do wonders. He can catch the ball. J.D. McKissick is there in that role as well. So I think they're okay with the running attack, and they're going to need that to balance out Ryan Fitzpatrick. He can open up the offense. He can really air it out. The smart guy out of Harvard. This is a guy who's 45 years old, looks a little, trying to copy my style with my beard and the nice tropical shirt. But Terry McLaurin's the wide receiver you're going to want. He's definitely a number one receiver. He's the number one receiver on this team. He's number 11 on my ranking. I've seen him as high as 7 and as low as 15. He's definitely the guy they're going to try to target. I know they just brought Curtis Samuel over, but I got Curtis Samuel ranked at 27. I think Curtis Samuel is a guy that, he can stretch the field as well as McLaurin, and he may benefit from McLaurin being so dominant. But look out for Diami Brown. I like this guy, 3rd-round pick out of North Carolina. This is a guy who's really going to open things up. Dynasty-wise, I like him. But you got to be careful right now. He's going to be your 5th wide receiver is what I'm saying. He's going to be that last wide receiver nobody's going to see coming. So go ahead and take him as your last receiver. If one of those guys that gets return yards isn't available, that's a guy you're going to want, Diami Brown. I'd like him to get on the field and make something happen. Logan Thomas, this is a guy who had a breakout in his 7th year. This is a guy who's tenacious. This is a guy who I like because of his work ethic. We talked about Travis Fulgham last segment about having a bad work ethic. This guy has the opposite. This guy's one of those lunch pail guys. This guy comes to work. But they just drafted John Bates to kind of complement. And what a great guy to learn from, and Logan Thomas with the work ethic from John Bates out of Boise State. They used a 4th-round pick on him, and I think he's going to be the tight end of the future there. So Antonio Gandy Golden hasn't shown up quite yet. I'm not real excited about any of the other names. Maybe a Dax Milne if you're looking for a stretch play at the end of your dynasty draft. Adam Humphries. But the guys I'm really concerned with are Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and a Diami Brown to round out my wide receiving core in Washington.
Yeah, looking at Washington, and like you said, Antonio Gibson, to me, he's the best weapon on this team offensively right now. I think there's a lot to be had here. Terry McLaurin, I think these guys kind of fill out, wide receiver-wise, they fill out your team. Terry McLaurin, not bad. If you have 4 receivers, not bad to have him as 1. Curtis Samuel, potentially. Adam Humphries, Antonio Gandy Golden. None of these guys are number 1 guys right now. But I think that they all, could fill out a roster pretty nicely. That's what I look at. You look to Washington receiving core to help fill out your roster. Logan Thomas, I feel better about him with Fitz being there. So I'm going to say he's a low-end 1 at tight end, but that's where I'm going to have him right now. And, because him and Bates could be sharing time. But really, I think, the guy I'm most excited about is Antonio Gibson. When I said we don't know who's going to be the guy at any given thing all the way through, what I mean by that is I don't know if Washington intends to use the other guys. Lamar Miller's there, Jonathan Williams is there, Peyton Barber, J.D. McKissick, a lot of guys that are trying to find their, maybe last leg in the NFL. So Antonio Gibson, I'm a huge fan of Memphis and a huge fan of the Memphis running backs and who they send to the NFL. And it seems like every year they're sending a running back to the NFL in the draft. So obviously, Antonio Gibson, who we talked about in our running back show that you can go back and watch on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com's Facebook, if you're wakeupcalldt.com fantasy football page, you can click there as well. But Antonio Gibson, to me, huge for this team. I want to be clear about that. Wide receivers, good to fill out your team, not necessarily the guys that you want to lean on predominantly. They're good fillers for it, so to speak. So that being said, we'll take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, Mike and I will wrap up the NFC coverage of the receiving cores by discussing the receivers of the NFC West. Avicoli's, coming to you on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been with us for decades. Now here for us Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks, find your way over to the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, the home of our exclusive Liverpool Warriors athletic program show through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Every single month, we have the opportunity to be there with Liverpool Athletics, and I'm so honored and privileged for the coaches and the student athletes, the parents, the guardians, the boosters, and everybody around the program in the community. You can literally walk from Liverpool High School to Avicoli's, and I suggest you do so if you want some great pizza, great veal, and a great just great people helping you out that really care about this community and put the community first. Thank you to Avicoli's for all they do for takeout, delivery, and catering. You can call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. You can also go online to myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. And, of course, you can go on site for their fine dining, their bar, as well as their pizza side, more casual side, and their outdoor dining. 4 restaurants in one at Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding, your home to trust with your furry-loving friends. They give you so much at Canine Campground Dog Boarding and Canine Camp Dog Daycare. I am so eternally grateful for all that they've done with Lily and with the animals throughout our community. All of our dogs, whatever their size are, and whatever breed the dog is, they have a plethora of animals that are there, and they play well together. They bring you through a whole process. They want to make sure your dog has a good temperament and can play well with other dogs. It's not just about taking anybody. It's about being very, very considerate of every dog that's there and every family that entrusts them with their animal. Canine Campground Dog Boarding, 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, and right around the corner from the Campground Dog Daycare, which is there for you on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, right off of Bridge Street. So make sure you get yourself over there. PB&J's Lunchbox, award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich with the roasted pecans cut up and put all throughout the peanut butter and jelly on that artisan bread. Fantastic. Everything that they offer you at PB&J's Lunchbox, you've loved following the food truck throughout central and upstate New York, and that food truck continues to go to all different events, but now you can go to them in their street side cafe. You can actually get there. So when you have a craving, you're like, oh man, there's no event going on today with the food truck. How do I get my PB&J's Lunchbox? Well, simple. You go to their new location on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, minutes from Destiny USA, the highway, the thruway, and Onondaga Parkway. Find your way over to PB&J's Lunchbox, new location on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York today. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, located right by the water of Skinny Atlas, offers us such a great opportunity to be treated as a human being and a patient that matters. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics not only has a fantastic group led by Dr. Mark Petropoli, but they also listen to their patients, care about you, and walk you through everything that's going on. From preventative care to rehab and physical therapy to surgery, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is your one-stop shop to get multiple avenues to try and correct your injury and to listen to you and truly care about their patients. They are separate from everybody else because victory to them means so much more than what it means to just a simple place. They handle each patient with care, and that care and consideration means the world to me, and that's why I've gone there for almost a decade. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Call them for an appointment today, 315-685-7544. That's 315-685-7544. With that being stated, Mike Sofka and I back here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios in the Fantasy Football Power Hour. The Fantasy Football Power Hour proudly presented to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You can go there for indoor and outdoor dining with their volleyball court outside as well. And, of course, there's a lot of different things that go on throughout the week. From live music, we're there monthly with the West Genesee Wildcats show that we have on site on location with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And, of course, you can get takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. Final division that Mike and I have to look at as we bring you through every receiving core of the NFC is the NFC West. The NFC West will start with the Arizona Cardinals, who used to be part of the old NFC East. They have DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, Christian Kirk. They drafted Rondale Moore, and so on and so forth. They have Max Williams and Darrell Daniels, as well as Ross Travis and Ian Bunting at their tight end core. What are your thoughts, Mike, when we look at the receiving opportunities in Arizona?
Yeah, they brought in A.J. Green. In years past, I would have said, oh, my gosh, A.J. Green, DeAndre Hopkins. But A.J. Green's on the backside of his career here. He's had injuries the past 3 years or so. He did manage to put together, a string of games last year. But still, this is a guy who you're used to, 1,500 yards, 100 catches. Now he's putting up 47 catches for 523. So you can't count on that guy anymore. You can't count on DeAndre Hopkins. He's continually one of the best wide receivers in the league. I've seen him as high as number 1. I've seen him as low as 6. I've got him at number 3 behind only Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. But after that, there's a tremendous drop-off. Well, hold on. Wait a minute. Yes, there is a drop-off because it was supposed to be Christian Kirk. Well, he's in a contract year of his rookie contract, and he's yet to have a breakout year. Well, it was supposed to be Andy Isabella. He's going to be the slot guy. He's a speedster. Well, that hasn't happened yet either. I'm going to tell you the name you're going to want. This is the sleeper a lot of people aren't going to see coming unless you're a big college football fan and maybe in that Big Ten or up north. Out of Purdue, Rondale Moore runs a 4.29. They're going to do what they have to do to get him the ball. They're going to put him on jet sweeps. He's going to play the slot. They're going to move him around. That's the name you want. That's the guy you want as your 4th receiver, maybe 5th receiver if you're carrying 4 or 5 receivers on your roster. Now, let me tell you something. I do well at drafting, and people that follow my system do well at drafting. And it never ceases to amaze me that you get draft offers for your 4th or 5th receiver or your 2nd or 3rd quarterback, and teams they give you a low ball offer, and you're like, well, this guy's doing a lot better than that. Well, I'm not giving you better than that for your 4th receiver. Well, yeah, he's my 4th receiver, but he would be your number 1 receiver. See, this is the type teams I'm talking about building when I give you my rankings. So Rondale Moore is definitely a name you're going to want to consider. Tight ends all but disappear for Arizona. Kyler Murray's running around with the ball. They're looking at Chase Edmonds, James Conner brought into the fold this year. Those guys and each other well, but Chase Edmonds is going to be the every down back in my mind's eye, and Chase Edmonds is going to be that pass catching guy as well. So I like DeAndre Hopkins a lot. I'm staying away from everybody else, but I'm going to surprise everybody at my draft with picking Rondale Moore as my 4th receiver.
Yeah, Rondale Moore, one of those guys that could be an immediate impact on this team in Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins worth drafting. A.J. Green's a nice decoy. He's a guy that could be a wide receiver 3 for you, and Rondale Moore, a guy that not everybody's going to know, but you know his name from listening to this show. So I think DeAndre and Rondale are worth drafting. I think A.J. Green's going to be taken too high by somebody that's just going to remember the name from Cincinnati, and I'll let them take them because I think it runs through DeAndre, and I think Rondale has the opportunity, like you said, to be a nice upside here to round out your receiving core and a draft pick worth making and a sleeper to a lot of people because he's a rookie. So I do agree with that, and the tight end position, I don't have to spend time in Arizona on that. Christian Kirk needs to figure things out too. I thought he would have a better career than he has been having, and he's been underwhelming, so I'll stay away from him in this draft as well and look to pick him up in free agency if need be. The Los Angeles Rams are the next one up here. Matt Stafford's their new quarterback, and they have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp still. Deshaun Jackson's 115 years old, but he's there. Van Jefferson's there as well. Tutu Atwell's coming to them, who had a nice time in Louisville. And their tight ends, Tyler Higbee and Johnny Munt, because Gerald Everett left to find help somewhere, to find his way somewhere else, because Everett and Higbee were eating each other away when it came to a tight end situation in Los Angeles. In fantasy, they were evening each other out. So Woods and Kupp, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Higbee looking like he could take over now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Higbee's going to be the focus on the tight end front there. I think he's going to be the guy. Watch out for a Bryson Hopkins to step up and a Jacob Harris as well at tight end. But, I think Tyler Higbee could be a tight end 2 for you on the team. I don't think he's, he did put up better numbers when he's a solo tight end, when he's the focus. So, maybe this is his opportunity to step up. But again, I'm not going to count on that. I have him ranked at 18. I have him ranked at 19. I'm looking at wide receiver, though, and there's some speed and there's some high draft picks in this wide receiver room. You got Robert Woods. He was the 2nd-round pick. You got Cooper Kupp, a 3rd-round pick. You got Van Jefferson was a second-round pick. These are guys that are speedsters, and then they go and they take Tutu Atwell, another second-round pick. So there's a lot of money invested in these wide receivers. Then they bring in Matt Stafford, a guy who can get the ball down the field, and a guy who's an upgrade over Jared Goff. Cam Akers at running back. You got the speedy Darrell Henderson out of Memphis. So these guys can keep defenses honest in the run game in a short passing attack and help open things up for Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods. Now, as far as these guys ranking, I don't think you can count on Tutu Atwell a lot this year. He is super fast, and maybe in a dynasty situation, I'm going to consider him. Van Jefferson's going to try to take over in the slot position, and then Robert Woods has been a stalwart as well as Cooper Kupp. They're basically evening each other out on the receptions each year. I got Robert Woods at 17, though, and Cooper Kupp at 22. Those are the two main focuses for me on this pass receiving core for the Rams.
Yeah, you know, this core is going to get better because Matt Stafford arguably has his best receiving core that he's ever had. Now, he had Megatron, but I'm talking about, I should say this, post-Megatron, Matt Stafford, between what he had in Detroit and what he has now, I think that he's definitely smiling for being in LA and having this opportunity. I like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp as draftable guys, Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell as sleepers, and Tyler Higbee as a low-end number one tight end. It's really as simple as that. Kupp and Woods, it could be either one of those guys or both. I think, you know, having them both is helpful. If they both stay healthy, it's helpful. And like I said, Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell, I think that they're good to pick up in a situation where you need a sleeper and you're looking to round out your team. I think that there could be a lot of upside value with that. And like Mike talked about, when you talk about trading guys and this and that, and it's like, well, you know, this is my fourth best guy, but it could be your first best guy. When we're rounding out our teams with Tutu Atwell or Van Jefferson, you could really need them down the road, and we could already have that depth built in. That's what it takes. When you want to win fantasy, you have to do your homework. And Mike and I are here to help you do your homework. We're here to be your tutors, so to speak, of fantasy football. Inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour every week, Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This week on Thursday, due to the special that we had with Dan Tortora celebrating her championship year. San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are there, as well as Richie James and Jalen Hurd. Mohamed Sanu found his way over here now. Benny Fowler still in the NFL. He found his way here as well. Those are your receivers in San Francisco, and obviously your tight end is George Kittle. Your thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, I like George Kittle. I liked him before I even saw him play. So this is a guy who, hosting tight end university. It's National Tight Ends Day. This is a guy who takes a lot of pride in his work. He's the steady Eddie number 3 across the board on most people's rankings. Some have him at number 2. The only guys ahead of him are Darren Waller, of course, for sheer volume, as well as Travis Kelce from Kansas City. So this is a guy you can rely on week in, week out. Yeah, I know he got injured that one time and was out for the year, but stuff like that happens. It's football. It's a violent game. On the receiving end, Brandon Ayuk, the explosive guy, former first-round pick. This is a guy who I really want on my team if I can get him. I got him ranked at 28, but this is a guy who can step up. The problem is the quarterback situation. Are we going to see a subpar Jimmy Garoppolo? Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be able to make the field? Is Trey Lance going to take over? Is Jimmy going to get hurt like he does, and then Trey Lance step in? So there's going to be adjustments. There's going to be times. Trey Lance knows how to run the ball, but he also knows how to throw the ball out of the Dakotas there. Deebo Samuel is a guy who doesn't appear to ever worry about disappointing me. This is a guy who in a couple years I've seen him has had problems staying healthy, problems getting on the field. He's had problems going back to his days at South Carolina with lower extremity injuries, and that's alarming. But when he's on the field, he's explosive. That's good enough for me to continue to take one more chance on this guy. I got him ranked at 43. So past these two guys, I'm not even thinking about other guys on my roster. Maybe if I'm getting return yard points, maybe a Richie James or maybe a River Craycraft. But those are deep. Those are last picks of the draft type deep. I'm not real happy about the running back situation. They got too many guys, too many names. I don't know who it's going to be. Is it going to be Wayne Gallman, Raheem Mostert, Elijah Mitchell, who they just brought in? It's probably going to be Trey Sermon. But don't forget about Jermichael Hasty and Jeffrey Wilson. There's just too many names names in that running back room. And Kyle Juszczyk's going to get some goal line vulture carries too, So looking at this core, I'm comfortable with a Deebo Samuel. I'm comfortable with a Brandon Ayuk, but don't overdraft them. If they get overdrafted, so be it. Move on.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Deebo Samuel is a letdown. Brandon Ayuk had the best season of all of the receivers last year, 748 yards, 60 catches, 5 touchdowns. Yay, and yay. He had the most of all of those 3 receptions, yards, and touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. So Brandon Ayuk is worth taking, and George Kittle is worth taking. Deebo Samuel, I really don't want to see him on my roster at the end of my draft. That means that I missed something, or I did something that I shouldn't have done. So, that's where I'm at with San Fran. It's George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. That's how I look at it. Simple as that. Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf. He was 5th string. 5th string, Mike. 5th when he was drafted as a rookie. He was 5th string, and I said, yeah, okay, he's going to be first. And look at what he's done. Him and Tyler Lockett have proven that they can both make hay in fantasy on the same team. They went and got my guy Dwayne Eskridge, who is coached by Western Michigan head coach, who's my dude, Tim Lester. He's on the team now. Tamarian Terry is there as well, who comes from Florida State. So they got some young talent there to try and work things out. And Gerald Everett left the Rams to go here to potentially take over where Will Dissly is and hasn't done a ton. So what are your thoughts on the situation in Seattle?
Yeah, the Seattle situation is good because they got a good quarterback in Russell Wilson. But remember, Seattle was able to win championships when Russell Wilson was still on a rookie contract. Seattle's able to put things together differently. Now Russell Wilson's the high-paid guy, and they got these up-and-coming guys. So ride this wave while it lasts, because this is only going to last another couple years here. DK Metcalf's going to want to get paid. Dwayne Eskridge is going to want to get paid another 4 years. So this is an opportunity. This is where you're at. You're in that sweet spot right now where you got DK Metcalf ranked number 6 on my rankings. I've seen him as high as 3 and as low as 11. The former second-round pick out of Ole Miss does not disappoint. And then you got Tyler Lockett again, the steady Eddie guy. The guy's usually considered the number 1 on the team. I got him ranked at 19. I've seen him as high as 20. As high as and as low as 28. I think he's going to continue to put up numbers that are everybody of why he's one of the top receivers in the NFL. And how can you not be excited about Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan, 2nd-round pick? This is a guy who's a speedy guy. They're probably going to try to move him into the slot, or maybe move Tyler Lockett into the slot, him on the outside, maybe having the younger, fresher legs. The running back situation is a little bit in flux. Chris Carson's usually the guy, but he's injury prone. Rashad Penny needs to step it up. They've had a revolving door, and every one of these guys has stepped up when called upon, including Alex Collins, DJ Dallas, Travis Homer. But, I'm sold on Chris Carson's going to be the guy. I don't think these guys are going to stop that passing attack. I think they're going to complement it. I think they're going to force the defenses to be honest and not just drop everybody back or not just send everybody on a blitz. Watch out for a deep name on the roster in Freddie Swain. A lot of people didn't even think he'd make the roster last year. He's proved that he's able to be on the team. This is a guy who might make a splash if there is an injury. So I like all these receivers. Dwayne Eskridge is a guy that you can have on your team. But again, end of the draft, somebody's probably going to overdraft him, and that's fine. He's probably going to put up some okay numbers for a rookie. But just as long as you know what you're getting when you're drafting, as long as you don't overdraft, and as long as you don't miss out on opportunities, you're going to be fine. So, sometimes people hear me say it's okay to let that guy get drafted, or he's going to be overdrafted. It's okay. Let that happen. That just means you're going to get value elsewhere. But I like all these guys pretty much, but especially, of course, DJ Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the Seattle roster.
Yeah, and Gerald Everett coming into this team, mind you, with Tyler Higbee with the Rams and them eating away at each other last year, he still had 41 catches for 417 yards. That bests Will Dissly, who he's coming in to try and oust as the starting tight end in Seattle. Dissly had 2 touchdowns. Everett had 1. But as far as catches, 41 to 29, 417 to 251 in yards. So I think Gerald Everett makes an impact on this team immediately. I think he's a sneaky sleeper as a low-end tight end 1, high-end 2. And DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both had over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns apiece. on the same field. So draft them both. And if you get, this is one of those situations where if you get both of these receivers, I feel great about it. Not like I got one of them, which one do I play? I just got them so I didn't have to. No. When you have both of these guys on the team, it's not I got him so I didn't have to. Yeah, you don't want to have to face him, but you don't buy him like these aren't handcuff guys. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not like, well, I need them both just in case because of this and that. No, they're both 1,000-yard receivers who have 10 touchdowns. They're both guys who know what they're doing. Tyler Lockett had 100 receptions. DK Metcalf had 83. So, and that could flip-flop this year. But I like both of these guys, and I think they're both worth drafting. And if you can get them both on the same team, that's fantastic. But whoever gets Lockett, someone's going to go Metcalf and vice versa. In the draft, I believe that's how it's going to go. As soon as you hear one of the guys' names, somebody else within a draft pick or two is going to take the other guy. So just be cognizant of that. And a deep sleeper and potentially Mr. Irrelevant of your draft is Dwayne Eskridge. You could have all three of these guys and feel really good about your life. So I'm just saying that because I think that this is one of those rare occurrences in the current NFL where there is no number one, number two receiver. Metcalf and Lockett are both number ones, and they both are going to do positive things on the field healthy. So there's a lot of good to be had in Seattle. With that being said, Mike, we are wrapped up with the receivers. We have given you shows of the running backs of the AFC, the running backs of the NFC, the wide receiver tight ends of the AFC, the wide receiver tight ends today of the NFC, every quarterback of the AFC, and every quarterback of the NFC. You can pick up all these videos by going out and finding them on our facebook.com/wakeupcalldt page, which you should like that page. You can follow us. Please make sure you subscribe on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You can find all the information there as well and all the shows. And, of course, you can find the archive on the Fantasy Football tab and the Fantasy Football Show tab on wakeupcalldt.com for free. In the meantime, go to halloffamefantasyfootball.com and find Mike Sofka and all of his paid and free services, and find us both on Winning Fantasy Football, the group that you should be joining on Facebook, because that's where you get to have a great time speaking your mind, and as long as you justify your opinion and you're respectful, we're happy to have you there. With all that being said, Mr. Sofka, I bid you adieu as always in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. Nobody does it like Mr. Sofka, and we appreciate you as always.
Hey, thank you, Dan. Thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to another winning season this year.
Yep, and we'll talk with you very soon. That coming from Mike Sofka here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And with that being stated, we have now come to an end of today's broadcast. We're happy to have you here. We thank you for having us when Dan meets Marino for our first two shows on-site on location ever on Long Island, and the first ones we did with Steve Marino. And, of course, I love the fact that I got to have Fran here in studio to share her first ever championship with me. So, a lot of great stuff in Tortora Squared. And, of course, today with Papa Joe, the DH conversation, and Mr. Mike Sofka going around the NFC talking about every single team situation with their wide receivers and tight ends. With that being stated, we'll talk with you on TGIF tomorrow. Can't believe it already is. We'll be having some fun with the Annoying Moment of the Week presented by Carvel DeWitt. Lead featuring Juanita Ward, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero. The top dog of the week will be announced. I'll be spotlighting someone special coming to you from Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding, and we'll have another special conversation. To find out what that is and so much more, find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, and always on wakeupcalldt.com. And, of course, you're listening and watching to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, as well as on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and on facebook.com/livenowdt. All of those avenues, you can find us there. And, of course, you can also go to our archives and find us by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or searching one word, Wake Up Call DT. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Tune In, YouTube, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podbean, and MixLR, and get to all of our archive shows. And, of course, we want to give a special thanks to all of our beautiful partners in the Central and Upstate New York community that help to make what we do so beautiful and so direct to this community. And that is Carvel DeWitt, Cafe Cubal, the Wildcat Sports Pub, as well as Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, the Millhouse Market, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Use the promo code MA at maandpauspopcorn.com from anywhere in the country. That's anywhere in the 50 states. Go to maandpauspopcorn.com and use the promo code DT20, that's DT20, and get 20% off today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I pray that you are always doing your best, giving your best, and being good to yourself. Stay positive, everybody. Love yourself, love God, and love those blessings that God has given you and all those loved ones He surrounded you with. In the meantime, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. This is Wake Up Call inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Find them on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse. Downtown Syracuse, inside of Galisanos Children's Hospital, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and their newest location and first time that they've ever had a drive-through window, which I absolutely love, seeing a local place get a drive-through just like Millhouse Market. Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse. At Sweetheart Corners, the nostalgia of Sweetheart Corners now has the amazing first ever drive-thru for Cafe Kubal. We will see you there. We thank you so much for everything, and we look forward to talking with you soon. As always, God bless, no stress, do your best, and please have a great day. On behalf of all good things in this world, I pray and I hope the best for you. I send my love to God. And happy Celebration Day, G-Mama, which to me is every day. I love you. I support you. I appreciate you. And I love being your grandson. I'll talk with you soon. God bless everybody and be well. Be good.